Let's bring in former Democratic presidential candidate, former Ohio Congressman, Fox News contributor, Dennis Kucinich. Congressman, great to see you. What are you expecting from this immigration announcement this morning?
Well, they're going to, first of all, have to clarify for the American people that they can get past the orders of the court that pulled the administration up short on some of these First Amendment issues. The next thing is how is the plan going to be unfolded? If you're going to hire between 10 and 15,000 agents, you have to have congressional approval. That involves the expenditure of billions of dollars. Those agents have to be trained. The idea that people are just going to rush out there and start apprehending violent criminals who are here illegally, that's not going to happen too fast, because you've got to identify them, you have to then have a plan to apprehend them, incarcerate them, they go before a judge, and they get deported. This is a process, and you have to keep in mind that process can still take a while to work.
But President Obama, in his first 4 years, ramped up the deportation of illegal immigrants here, focusing on people who were criminals. Now, that those deportations trailed off in his second term, but you had things like federal raids on these maternity hotels where people would fly to the United States to have their kids on American soil so they would have U.S. citizenship. President Obama was tough on immigration, certainly in his first 4 years, and is Trump being demonized just for tough talk when he might be doing very well the same thing?
Well, there are some similarities between the policies of the Obama administration and what President Trump is espousing, except that President Obama never came forward and talked about what could be construed as a religious test. You know, keep in mind that the American people are very concerned about violent criminals who come into this country, or people who may be suspected terrorists who would come into this country to do us harm. That is a national security issue. However, we have to be careful, and this is, you know, to remember what America is about. America is a country of immigrants. And that, I think, has been the big difficulty that President Trump has had, because the tone of his immigration orders has been to, in the eyes of some people, challenge the underlying ethics about what America's about.
Congressman, I do want to point out, though, on that very thing, now we're waiting for the revised travel order to come out, but the new version that some in the media have seen appears to address that criticism about it being a religious test or a religious ban, amounting to religious discrimination, which would be unconstitutional, by eliminating the preferences for religious minorities that was included in the original order. So legally and psychologically, the administration is sensitive to that accusation.
Well, that's important. Here's the difficulty they have. The first rollout was handled in a way that wasn't very good. And so the second one is going to be framed based on the first one. You know, this is really a matter of framing the issue, and it's reframed, and as it's being reframed, people are going to say, well, is this more of the same? The courts will determine that, but I think that, you know, I don't think anybody argues with the need to deal with violent criminals who are here illegally or suspected terrorists, but there's a lot of argument about painting all immigrants with the same brush, and also putting into the maw of deportation people who really are just caught up in the bureaucracy. We've got to be careful how this is handled.
Congressman, you know, this immigration plan is supposed to prioritize removal of criminal illegal immigrants or illegal aliens, and that's defined by, from what I've read, convicted of any criminal offense, been charged with a criminal offense that hasn't been resolved, have been using public benefit programs that they weren't supposed to use, or subject to removal order but still in the country. How do you see that sort of expansion of what's defined as criminal illegal aliens?
I don't know that it's an expansion. The question is, who gets caught up in this directive? And that, because not all immigrants are the same. We have to realize that. There's dozens of different statuses. So we have to be careful that we're not sweeping up innocent people in this effort to try to make our country safer.
But are you innocent if you're violating the rule of law? I mean, essentially, if you're here illegally, are you technically innocent?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, there are some people who have overstayed the time they're permitted. Theoretically, they're in violation, but they're not violent criminals. Some are in application. They're trying to get their stay extended. They haven't been approved. You know, they're in a gray area. So what I'm suggesting is that while we need to pay attention to national security issues here, we also have to be very careful that we're not painting all immigrants with the same brush.
Congressman, it's Robert. How are you? Nice to see you.
Hi.
Just a quick question. With respect to these 7 countries that go through pretty intense vetting already, I think Homeland Security has said that it takes 18 to 24 months for these countries if they don't have visa or green card waivers. So how is it that much different than what's already happening?
Well, it's not that much different, I mean, except that there's a renewed emphasis on it. As I said at the beginning of this interview, there is a process here, and the process can be very lengthy in working its way out. The big concern that Americans have is that in our desire to be able to protect our borders, that we do not cause undue criticism to people who might have an immigrant status. And we have to remember where America came from. You know, there's a symbolic issue here. There's a real policy issue that has to be dealt with. But there's a symbolic issue about who are we as a nation. Are we continuing to welcome people? Give us your tired, you're free, your huddled masses. Or are we saying, whoa, that's it, we're not taking anyone else? We have to be careful the signal that we send to those millions of immigrants that are in this country who are contributing to America, who are helping to build our tech industries, who are helping to replenish our medical and educational institutions. And we have to continue to be welcoming, while at the same time deal with those issues that President Trump has identified as national security matters.
Congressman, great to see you. Dennis
Thank you.
Kucinich. Take care. We'll see you soon.